Have you ever had the feeling that something monumental was about to happen, but no one around you seemed to notice? That unsettling tension, that quiet certainty deep in your chest. It's like standing at the edge of a storm, the sky eerily calm, the air thick with something invisible yet undeniable. That's exactly how it began, on what looked like an ordinary morning in Jerusalem. Dusty streets, bustling crowds, voices echoing off sun-warmed stone walls. But heaven knew otherwise. The angels were silent. Creation held its breath. The fate of humanity was about to be sealed by footsteps, footsteps leading not to a throne of gold, but to a cross. People say kings arrive with fanfare and armies cloaked in power and surrounded by steel. But this king chose a donkey. Not a war horse, not a chariot, not even a show of strength. Just a lowly donkey and the sound of branches swaying in the wind. Palm leaves underfoot, voices lifted in songs of joy and expectation. It looked like celebration, but beneath it all hid something eternal, an ancient secret in motion, a divine countdown wrapped in the ordinary. That morning, Jesus had spent the night in Bethany, a small town just over the Mount of Olives. He was with close friends. Lazarus, the one he had called from the grave, was there. The atmosphere felt different. The air was heavy. Something was shifting. Jesus' eyes, filled with depth and purpose, seemed to carry the weight of an unseen truth he knew. He knew what lay ahead. Yet, at sunrise, he spoke in a calm but commanding voice. Go to the village ahead of you. There you will find a donkey tied, with her colt beside her. Untie them and bring them to me. Not a command for power, but a signal of humility. A message embedded in simplicity, not a king demanding war, but a savior fulfilling prophecy. Behold, your king comes to you, righteous and having salvation, gentle and riding on a donkey. These words, written centuries earlier by the prophet Zechariah, were unfolding before the eyes of all, and yet unseen by most. As the disciples made their way to retrieve the animal, Jerusalem stirred to life. Merchants opened their stalls, priests prepared for Passover, families hushed to secure offerings. But an invisible tension shimmered in the air. Something sacred was drawing near. And you, if you had been standing there, would you have noticed? Would you have seen divinity in the dust-covered man on the donkey? Or would you, like most, have seen just another traveler? When the disciples returned with the donkey, everything was just as Jesus had said. They laid their cloaks on its back, forming a makeshift saddle. Jesus mounted it in silence. And in that moment, the wind seemed to hush. Leaves stood still. The sunlight paused on stone rooftops. Heaven watched. Earth waited. And then it began. At first, just a few people saw him coming. Some remembered his words, his miracles, how he had spoken with unmatched authority, how blind eyes had opened at his touch. Something stirred in them, something ancient. They spread their cloaks on the road, a sign of honor. Others cut branches from the trees, palms, and waved them high. Children danced. The crowd swelled. "Hosanna!" they shouted. "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. It was joy, yes, but also something more. A declaration, a challenge to every kingdom, every fur, every lie. A cry that echoed through time. The King has come, and he comes not to negotiate, but to redeem. And you? Are you ready for when he walks near your life? Will you recognize him in the quiet and the unexpected? Or will you let him pass by? Jesus moved forward slowly, not distracted by the cheering crowd. His gaze reached beyond them to something unseen, to the cross, to the weight of sin, to you. He walked with the calm of someone who knows the end and chooses to face it anyway. Children laughed. Women wept. Some fell to their knees in worship, others watched in awe. But not everyone rejoiced. In the shadows, the Pharisees, guardians of the old order, grew restless. The joy of the crowd unsettled them. They pressed through the people and confronted Jesus. "Teacher, rebuke your disciples," they demanded. But Jesus, with eyes burning like truth, replied, "I tell you, if they keep silent, the stones will cry out." Even the earth was ready to worship, because this was not a show. This was not theater. This was eternity, breaking through time. This was God entering the city of his people, knowing he would be rejected. Do you realize what kind of love that takes? To walk willingly into betrayal, to embrace suffering, just to offer hope. That is what he did. That humble ride into Jerusalem was no parade. It was a heavenly invasion, a silent storm crashing against sin, a royal procession armed not with weapons, but with purpose. Step by step, Jesus walked deeper into the heart of his destiny. And though the crowd shouted praises, his heart wept. When the city came into view, he stopped, his eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Jerusalem, if only you had known, even today, the things that bring peace. But now, they are hidden from your eyes." He saw through the noise, through the momentary excitement. He saw the pain that would come, the betrayal, the crucifixion, the weight of humanity's rebellion pressing down on him. He saw it all, and still, he didn't turn back. Have you ever walked straight into pain for the sake of love? That's what he did. His journey wasn't for applause. It was for salvation. And even today, he still enters hearts, not to be praised, but to save. The city trembled with whispers. Merchants paused mid-sale. Priests lowered their scrolls. The crowd, drawn by curiosity and awe, began to murmur, "Who is this?" Some answered, "It's Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." But few grasped the truth. They weren't just seeing a prophet. They were beholding the Lamb. The Lamb who, within days, would be offered in sacrifice. Ironically, while families prepared lambs for Passover, God had already provided his. Not one carried by a priest, but the priest himself, carrying his own cross. Each palm branch that fell to the ground was more than a symbol of celebration. It was a shadow of judgment, of suffering to come. And as the songs of praise rose like incense, Jesus remained silent because he knew many of those voices would soon cry, "Crucify him." Can you feel the weight of that moment? Perfect love, walking through imperfect hearts, light pressing through layers of darkness. And still, he didn't stop, because the plan was greater than the pain. The love, stronger than the rejection. The air wasn't just thick with the smells of incense or fresh bread. There was something more. A spiritual electricity. The kind that brushes your skin and makes your soul hold still. Angels looked down, poised for command, but no command came, because the one who could summon legions had chosen the path of silence. As Jesus looked across the sea of faces, he knew each one. He saw those who would follow, those who would betray, those who would run, those who would stand at the cross. And still, he loved them, every single one. The crowd swelled with emotion. Some waved palms in sincere belief. Others followed the noise, caught in the moment. Hidden among them were spies from the Sanhedrin, watching closely, gripping their robes in frustration. Because this wasn't just a procession, it was a threat. Not because of the shouting, but because of what it meant. A new kingdom was breaking in. A kingdom where the last are first. Where meekness is strength. Where victory comes through sacrifice. And you, if you had been there, would you have followed him all the way? Or turned back when the songs faded and silence fell? Eventually, the donkey's steps led to the heart of the city, the temple, the place where God's presence was supposed to dwell. But instead of reverence, it was filled with chaos. The clink of coins, the cries of merchants, the stench of greed. Jesus dismounted, his feet touched the stone floor. And for a moment, silence. The children still sang, "Hosanna to the Son of David." But the religious leaders burned with rage. "Do you hear what they are saying?" they snapped. And Jesus, without hesitation, answered, "Yes, haven't you read? From the lips of children and infants you have ordained praise." Each word cut through pride like a sword. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence alone exposed what was hidden. And then he acted. Tables flew, coins scattered, chairs crashed. And with a voice as steady as thunder, he declared, "It is written, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves." This wasn't rage, it was righteous fire, a divine cleansing. The temple, the dwelling of the holy, had become a marketplace. And Jesus came to restore what was sacred. Can you picture it? The wood splintering, the metallic clatter of coins on stone, the breathless silence of those watching. And in the midst of the upheaval, something beautiful happened. The blind, the lame, the unwanted, those kept at the fringes, came to him, and he healed them, not with ceremonies or grand speeches, but with simple touches, with compassionate eyes, with a love so real it melted every barrier. While dust still floated from overturned tables, worship began anew, not with incense, but with tears, not with rehearsed prayers, but with gratitude. The children's voices didn't stop. Hosanna to the Son of David. Their songs echoed in that sacred space like whispers of heaven. But not everyone could stand the purity. The leaders, unable to accept what they saw, were furious, because true holiness always exposes falsehood. That entry into Jerusalem did more than stir celebration. It ignited a war, not of swords, but of spirits. Jesus didn't just claim the streets. He claimed the temple. He claimed the hearts of his people. Because when light walks into darkness, everything hidden is revealed. And now, the question is for you. Will you let him cleanse your inner temple? Or will you cling to tables long overdue for flipping? As night fell, the city seemed calm, but nothing was the same. Rumors spread like sparks. The prophet from Galilee cleared the temple. The Son of David has come. Was he the Messiah? Some wondered, others feared. But Jesus didn't stay for applause. He left the temple in silence. He returned to Bethany, as if he knew time was running out. Behind him, he left hearts divided, some hopeful, others furious. That night, the stars seemed to shine differently over Jerusalem, as if all of creation understood what was coming. Because this week would change everything. Because Palm Sunday was never about palm branches. It was about surrender. It was about a king who chose the cross. It was about love, real, raw, and unstoppable, riding humbly through the gates of a city that would break his heart so he could heal